Okay. Team roles. Let's go through that really quickly. Go ahead, Hannah.
I am peacekeeper, so I avoided overriding others.
Callista.
I was the committer. Rarely changes a choice once made.
Joey.
The overrider. Used overrides to exert maximum influence.
I was an all-rounder, well-balanced playstyle, and then Joey and Callista. Soulmates.
Yep.
Agreed most often.
I was an all-rounder. I had a well-balanced playstyle.
I was a quick thinker. I made decisions without hesitation.
And I was also an all-rounder.
We are the debate squad yet again. Now that we've learned, after we learned that overrides resupply after every chapter, we started doing that a lot more. So,
let's go from right to left here, starting with Mikey.
So I had safety, which is a new one. So I tried to prevent harm and protect others, and I'm loyal. I stick by others in tough times.
Joey.
Freedom values adventure and the road less traveled, and sincere seeks genuine connections with others.
I also had freedom, and then I also had playful. Finds the levity in every situation.
Hannah.
I got peace, seeks calm, and avoids confrontation, and principles guided by strong moral convictions.
Callista.
I got safety, tries to prevent harm and protect others, and sincere, seeks genuine connection with others.
And Kevin.
Got peace, seeks calm, and avoids confrontation, and playful, finds the levity in every situation.
It should say we'll always pick the naked option.
I have questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Family, I was family, sticks by their family, whatever it costs, and then sincere, seeks genuine connection with others.
Sam, what do you think your things would have been? So playstyle, values, and traits. From what we got.
Probably the piece of freedom, and then maybe loyal.
Fair.
Loyal.
Yeah.
Sticks by others in tough times. Okay.
And now we have, I believe this is the flow chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
We have Jay
Wow.
and Ash.
That start for Jay is very weird. So we go through Jay or Ash first?
We can go with Jay first.
So Jay obviously has started with running from the shadows, and 38% of people fled motel with Zoe hostage. So that would be what 62% didn't. 24% kept Zoe in the car, which is a story changer, and then 25% left the wreckage with Zoe. 25% escaped the wreck. 22% took Zoe to safety. And then meanwhile, There's a Dream woke up at Vanessa's house. 65% told Mima the truth. We had lunch with Vanessa. 69% told Vanessa about Bear. Nice. We helped Vanessa study. Then we had 39% answered the history question correctly. Wow. Dr. Dorland came... Sorry, no, I'm reading... It's Mr. Dorland, not Doctor. Mr. Dorland came in. We made him suspicious because we got the question wrong. We said goodbye, stopped by Dr. Dorland. We convinced Mr. Dorland, I assume, to not call the cops. We reunited with our family. Jay was adopted? 78% asked about the birth mom. And we launched a Tyler. We won the fight. 97% won the fight. And then 67% ran away from family. We were chased into the woods. We climbed up the tree. I assume the other option... I don't know what the other option there is. Maybe talk to Tyler. We saved Tyler from falling. Tyler's a fugitive. And we became a fugitive. And then on the Ash line, which is a much more straight line, the Fortune of Awesomeness, 51% saved the chocolate bar, cornered by the boar. 82% escaped the boar unharmed. We discovered the fort. 95% of us treated their injuries. We hid in the cabin. Bear entered the cabin. Interrogated. Bear got mean. We broke our leg and ditched. So the leg is broken, but he was walking on it, so that's a lot of adrenaline. 92% escaped from the ditch. And then we didn't reveal the cabin to Dante, 67%.
Which
And that
connects.
affected our line with Jay. So when it
Mhm.
says chased by Tyler into the woods, obviously there was a different, but there must have been some sort of link between that and whether or not we revealed the cabin.
I assume if we had told, we would have ended up being chased by cops there.
Yeah, if the police knew about the cabin. Interesting. I didn't even think about that.
This tree is it's a lot less. There's a lot less in the middle, but there's a lot more at the beginning and the end for Jay.
Yeah. Cool. I'm very upset that the fact that we knew about Teddy Roosevelt was not a story changer.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed.
I mean, I knew that, and I'm not even American.
Yes. So, Roma, why don't you kick things off? What would you like to talk about, chat about, ask about?
See, I'm looking over the story again because, like, a lot of it, like, I know I overrode something, but I can't even remember what it was. Like, everything at the end there kind of really, really kicked into gear. Does anyone else remember what I overrode? Because I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. I know there was a big override.
There was
fight.
a lot of override over I'll stay or you go.
Right. I'll stay versus you go.
The ear and finger, we had a few overrides.
That's true.
Was it the one where we sneak out or stay? Was that the one you overrid? In the with Vanessa?
Oh yes.
I don't think
sneak out versus say goodbye.
I don't think I overrode that one. I'm pretty sure it was the you stay versus I'll stay.
And then there was the naked one.
Then there was the naked one.
That one too.
I did choose that option because I thought it would be funny. Yeah. Yeah. Overall, I feel like this chapter it was a comparatively light chapter compared to what we just finished. But I think that makes sense since this is, I'm assuming, the second half of the game. So they're trying to kind of ease us into the rest of the game. So lots of setup here, I think. Turns out we were right about Jay not being part of the family, but we were kind of wrong about about some things.
We still don't know who the father is.
We don't know who the father is. I think it is.
Could still be
Jim. Jim. I think it is Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't think Tyler would just turn on Jay that quickly, but
that did seem like almost out of left field, but
yeah. But I admitted I was rooting for Jay to knock him out of the tree because he was coming after Jay, you know, and I was thinking maybe Jay's had enough by this point. Like passive Jay is gone. Like he's been through a lot in these past couple days, but you know, saving Tyler I think was also in character. That's why I didn't override because I said both of these I think fit right now. So, but he did end up saving him, so we'll see. Tyler's a fugitive, so I'm guessing we're gonna see him again in the future. So.
Go ahead, Roma.
No. I'm just looking through the rest of the story. Go ahead.
What I found very interesting is at the very end when Jay saved Tyler. Tyler said, "If it's between them versus you, pick you." But I find that a little ironic since Jay could have picked him, as in he could have stomped on Tyler's fingers, therefore choosing himself. But Tyler seemed very grateful that Jay picked them versus you. So I feel like fairly consistently our Jay has been trying to be more selfless and trying to choose others over himself. And more often than not, it seems to have awarded him like better than thinking of himself. So that's why I take a lot of the characters try to give these pieces of advice that I think is supposed to be like impactful. Like Bear tried to give him a lot of advice, and then Tyler's giving advice now. So I'm like, I know you're trying to be impactful what you're saying, but I'm still taking that advice with a grain of salt. So.
By the way, I got curious and I looked up the meaning of Shima, and apparently it's a Native American word meaning mother. So I'm guessing Ash and his mother are Native American. That's just by my.
Well,
like
saying his origins.
Yeah, he does mention that his mom is part Native and part Samoan, so she's also a Pacific Islander as well.
Did he mention that? Where did that?
He said his mom is Shima and Samoan.
Well, Bear was interrogating.
Yeah,
and Bear was like, "No, not that. Where do you live, you
Little
idiot?"
shits.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I think I missed that part. So.
And I feel like there was a brief reference to that in the earlier chapters too. I think.
Maybe. I don't really remember much about Joyce. I won't lie.
Anything else, Roma?
I think that's it. I mean, I think this was a very interesting first chapter of the second half. So I'm curious to see where all this leads us. So I'm rooting for Zoe. I saw that she was on anti-anxiety meds, and I know what that's like. So I don't blame her at all. Like, I'm sure all of this must have affected her deeply. So I'm rooting for Zoe. I'm waiting to see how we catch up to Zoe eventually. But I'm this was fun. I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
I think this chapter is them setting up the fact that the next chapter we'll be playing as Zoe.
We could be.
Maybe.
We could be.
I want to know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what were y'all's thoughts with the, you'll stay, I'll stay. What were you thinking when you were making that decision? Because I'll be honest, I picked I'll stay, but for very selfish reasons. Because my goal was like, I'll stay and snitch. Screw you.
Interesting. Okay. I verbalized it. I picked I'll stay because I'm like, Jay clearly is not. His family has not really done him much of a service overall, and I'm like, it's probably better for him to just cut ties now as peacefully as possible and just say, all right, I'll stay, you all go, and then hope that he'll have a better life away from his family. And that's why I picked it.
See, I want the same for Jay. My priority when I'm playing as Jay is for him not to take the fall for his family's mistakes. That's because I'm worried that is an outcome that could happen. And my reasoning, because I went the other way and I went with you stay, my thinking at the time was I didn't want there to be a situation where Jay was there alone. They found the cabin and Jay was, arrested and his family got away. I thought there's still a chance that the cops can find him outside of the cabin, but then he's got more maneuverability. He can keep moving. He's got more kind of like environment to hide in. He feels very like in his element in the woods. So I was thinking he might have a better chance of hiding and keeping himself safe if he was out of the cabin. That was my thinking.
So I picked I'll stay because of the fact that I think Jay is just sick of running. I think Jay's had enough of all this. He's like, I just want to not run anymore. I don't want to be involved in this anymore. He didn't want to be involved in it at the start, and after all this, the shootouts, Dale dying, getting a phone number off of a pretty girl, that definitely helps. I don't know what Jay would do out in the wild on his own. Obviously, he's survived on his own. He's been hunting with his dad. He's done all that sort of stuff. But I don't know how he would get to Canada and get across the border and then build a new life in Canada by himself. Like, what would he do? Would he just be a wild man? Would he just go out and build himself a cabin in the woods and, do that up there? Or what? Like, I don't know. I'm more terrified of the fact that he would be out on his own, having no idea. Like, he wouldn't know the local area at all, but at least here he knows what the forest is like. He knows where everything is. He kind of knows. He has a situation where he could, in theory, not live a normal life, but live a fulfilling life for him.
Yeah, I picked the no, you stay option because from the start of the game up to this point, it's always been other people that are telling him what to do, and every single time that they do, it's always bad for him. So this looked like a perfect point to just stop listening to what others are telling you to do and start making your own decisions. And it was just a little bit of devil's advocate as well, like. Yeah, why don't you stay, Tyler? It's like, yeah, that's a perfect option, right? You can survive. You're a big boy. Let me stay with mother. We'll be fine for the family. So it was, yeah, just confrontational and stop to listen what other people are telling him to do.
How about you, Kevin?
I picked the I'll stay. Because I just wanted to separate myself from the family. Like, you know, they're clearly, I mean, I don't know. It feels like they make selfish choices, and it's like I would rather Jay just rely on himself than have to continue to rely on these people who will just abandon you or leave you whenever they think all hope is lost. And it's like, I don't know. I just felt like he had a better chance of just doing it on his own instead of worrying about other people.
Yeah, so let's talk about Ash. Any thoughts? Or Dustin, as I like
Dustin.
to call him.
Oh, I love him. It's amazing. Just that story that was telling in the beginning with his little drawings and comic book styles. Oh, so cool.
I love that. I love that little view into him.
Did they ever explain why... Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, I'm a little bit disappointed looking at the story tree that whether or not the cabin was or wasn't revealed seems to be the only real kind of ending to that section, because we all kind of like put a lot into like try to keep him alive and well and like to get him through this, and it didn't feel, at least by looking at this, that a lot of it mattered. I might be interpreting it wrong, but it seems like the only kind of decision that mattered in that whole segment was whether or not the cabin was revealed or not. But that's just my view.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because both the previous two options can lead to can lead to both of them, I think. Yeah.
And no matter what, like, let's say he did get attacked by the boar and he couldn't get out of the hole and his leg was really badly broken, we know he survives because in the first chapter he was riding his bike and going away from the motel. So it did kind of feel like this is all to set up whether the cabin was or wasn't revealed. No matter what you do, he's always going to live. It's just that final decision that's important. It felt a little bit like padding, but don't get me wrong, I still had fun. I think Ash is a cute character, and it was nice just kind of going along that little side adventure where everything kind of like, it really helped to break the tension. But in terms of like actual, like, do your decisions matter, it kind of felt like, well, the last one did, but
they matter in the moment. They matter a lot in the moment, I think. Also, I think what Roma might have actually overrid was ear or finger when Bear was asking. That might have been what she overrid.
Oh. Now, to be fair,
Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole Ash story has a really big influence on the main J story, though. Because I think that the didn't reveal versus the reveal would have led to an entire different part of the tree. And it's a really big change, I think.
Yeah.
Because right now it's chased by Tyler into the woods, and I think if we would have revealed the cabin, would have been something entirely different. Maybe the cops were even there and Tyler wouldn't have been there.
I think if you had revealed that the cabin was there and you decided to stomp Tyler's fingers, I think Tyler would have been caught.
Maybe.
So the cops would be there and you'd be like, help Tyler up, and save him from the cops or knock him down to the cops, and you can keep running.
Since we brought it up, ear versus finger. I picked ear because it would be awful if you were missing an ear, but fingers are pretty. I use my fingers every day.
Absolutely.
And even if your ear was cut off, I think you could still hear.
Yes.
You could still have use of hearing. So that's why I was like, I kind of want all my fingers, thank you.
Your ear itself is very, in the modern day, is very cosmetic. Because even if you're missing the ear, you can still hear, but back when you were hunting and all that, you needed the ear to, capture sound and all that. But nowadays, it's not that big of a deal. But, Ash is an artist. He draws. He needs all his fingers. That was my argument. I'm like, Ash, you need all your fingers. Your ear will be secondary. And you can be Van Gogh.
Curious about anyone else's for that one.
That was purely instinct. Leaving. You can choose between an entire ear or maybe pink. What? This little finger. I can get rid of this little finger, but my ear? That's a big one.
Yeah, I think I spent 90% of the time making that decision just in shock. What is this? And I was desperately trying to find the screen for any other option. Because I couldn't believe that Bear would do. I know that he's a dick. I know that. I've seen enough of him to know. But we haven't seen him mutilate anybody. He did bury a guy alive, I suppose. But or tried to. But I don't know. I was just in a state of shock. I felt like it was just a bit it came. So I think in the end it was I think Joey said, it came down to instinct, just what was in the moment.
Yeah, not just mutilate people, but just mutilate a kid.
Yeah.
Really. So I thought that character, as terrible as Bear had been portrayed, would not cross that line, but apparently he did. He does. So it did feel like, well, we didn't like him before. The story really, really wants you to hate him even more. So,
but
maybe even regret. Go ahead.
It was a threat, though, that I think he was definitely trying to kind of intimidate and strike fear. But there was at one point where he said during that thing, that he'd done it to his older son or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'd met the sons, and I couldn't remember that Tyler had a missing finger.
He says that he was going to do it, and then Tyler started crying for his mama, and Bear let him go.
Right.
So Bear didn't do it. He threatened him, didn't do it.
Yeah. My perhaps it was just me being hopeful, but I was interpreting it as Bear was really trying to kind of intimidate and kind of strike fear into this kid. I wanted to hope that he wouldn't actually be capable of doing that. I don't know. He could be, but that was my interpretation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So speaking about Bear, since the ash line has no split off between Bear entering the cabin or not, do you think he would have always survived? The hanging? If he would have left him hanging, maybe the woodwork would have broken?
This is 2 months ago.
Yeah.
The ash line is 2 months
before. 2 months ago, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was before he...
Right.
Yeah.
That's before, yeah.
That's why Bear's
right.
Yeah. Because it says there at the start that it's 2 months earlier. It was in, what would that be? February? Is that right? It'd be February of 1998, essentially.
With Bear, Hannah mentioned this when he was saying, this is how my dad disciplined me, and his dad before that, and his dad before that. That was very triggering for me, because okay, I'm gonna be very honest. I can be a very judgmental person when it comes to how other people parent. And I'm not talking about nitpicking. If I see somebody at a store and I see a parent doing certain, I'm not talking about that. But just using the excuse, this is what my parents did to me, therefore I'm doing it to you. in my opinion, I think that's
Stupid.
lazy parenting.
It's bad
lazy
parenting. It's not lazy. It's
It's
bad
bad
parenting.
It's
Learn from the
sure.
mistakes
So
of your parents.
like I'm just gonna default to what my parents did because I know that my dad parented in a certain way, and a lot of what he did, his dad did, and his dad did. Like I know that my generation of at least males in my family tended to be very strict, and when it got to me, I made a decision. I'm not going to do this to my kids. Like, this is, like, I love my dad. He did a lot of things right. I recognize he wasn't perfect. I'm not perfect. So I'm going to pick and choose the things that I decide to do for my kids. And Colin, for example, was super, super, like, adamant about specific things in our parenting. Like, we're not going to do that. We're not doing that, even though I know that happened to you as a kid. So that was, like, really, like, triggering for me.
Mm-hmm. I will say, not to, I 100% agree with you, Harkin, and not to excuse. I would just say that I think the reason that a lot of people default to that is because that's the only exposure they've had to any style of parenting. So that to them is what parenting is, because they haven't been exposed to other ways of doing it. They might have even had a childhood that affirms that behavior, i.e. my parents did this and me or my brother turned out okay, so it affirms that. So I think it's not always a case of they realize that is not an acceptable way to do it, or that there is no alternative, because that's the only thing they've had exposure to.
That's very fair. Very fair.
Parenting's hard. Don't do it.
It's your kids.
Don't do
Leave them.
it. Don't do it.
Just don't do it.
Just leave them behind as you go to Canada. As you flee to Canada.
Yeah. Or in Mama and Sharon, and in Sharon and Tyler's case, head to Mexico.
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just head to Mexico. Don't need to worry about it anymore.
Okay, I think we're done talking about Ash. So back to.
Oh, sorry.
Go
I was just to finish off, because I can't remember who, but someone did say, "Do you think Ash is Dante's son?"
That was me.
Thank you. Because I did find it interesting in book 1 when right when the Holt brothers had like come in with guns and Joyce is blah 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 blah, all of that. One of the first things Joyce did say was, I wonder if Dante knows that Ash isn't here. That was like one of the first lines she says.
I didn't know that.
And because I remembered it at the time, I was like, that's kind of a weird line. But after seeing how Dante treats Ash, and I did think they actually kind of looked similar-ish. I don't know, maybe I was seeing things, but like seeing them together.
I think you're right. I think they have very similar noses.
Is everyone just related to everyone?
I mean, it's rural Arizona in the 1990s, so maybe.
There are only so many options here.
Yeah, in Turok, I don't even know how many people live in Turok today.
It's like the show Once Upon a Time. Everyone's related to everybody. Okay.
Hang on, I need to find this. Give me a second. But yeah, I don't know, because
I did not.
Obviously, Dante's wife is sick. I don't know how long she's been sick, and we know Ash is what, 10, 11, maybe.
I'm putting somewhere around there.
So maybe it's been maybe it's a case of like Ash is from a previous relationship with Joyce, or it's another situation where Jim ended up with somebody and they never saw each other again, that sort of thing.
We do know that the mechanic guy doesn't like Dante, right?
Yes,
because he will.
Yeah,
he was really adamant about that he wasn't the best option for being such a high-standing cop. So maybe there's something in there as well.
Is the mechanic guy is Paul? I think is his name.
Yeah.
Is he? What is his relation to Joyce? What is he? Just a friend?
He just works there.
Yeah, I think he just works there.
Together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he mentions that Dante is a cousin of his at some point. That Dante shouldn't have been the sheriff.
But Paul is Zoe's real father. Because they have the same nose.
I mean, could be.
Yeah.
Everyone is everyone's
lines
father. Everybody's
Everybody's there.
circle.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, of Zoe's father, so somebody mentioned that it would have been possible by this point for Zoe's dad to, what was his name, Vince to have died.
Yeah, because it mentions in the achievements that Vince survived, and apparently less than 50% of people got that achievement.
That he survived, less than 50%.
Yep.
Oh wow!
Hey,
good job, everybody. I
So
guess.
there's also the fact that Dale, 58% of people had it so he died in the scene where he dies, but that means that when it came to the bit where they're escaping off to Mexico, it's going to be Dale, Tyler, and Sharon, and Jay. You can't fit 4 people on a motorcycle.
That's why, I find it so strange that instinct tells me that it's just such a big change if Dale would have survived it. I think it was scripted.
It is Arizona, not that we're in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, cool.
I wonder if it's like, oh, because you didn't warn him about the sniper, that means he gets shot in the shootout. Like, I wonder if that's the change.
Yeah,
he's always gonna die. It just depends on what time.
Possible. That's possible.
It's such a big change in the story otherwise. Like, there would be another person who can't fit on a motorcycle. They couldn't have taken Zoe with them because there was not enough space in the car.
It's the 1990s. You can throw 4 people in the back of that car. You're fine.
What would have happened with the car crash? Then Dale would have been sitting there as well in the back.
Who knows? We won't know until we go back and replay it or something. Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's so different. So
also, I can't find a listing for the for how many people are in Turok. That's how small it is. So
let's also talk about the other new characters that were introduced. So we have Vanessa, and then Mima and Mr. Dorland. Let's talk about the Dorland scene. I really liked Mima a lot.
Yeah.
she was adorable, and I kind of felt, I get it because she's a teenager. I kind of felt a little salty when Vanessa's like, "Oh, I used to look up to her. She was a black belt, whatever. She did this and this and this, and now look at her." I don't know. I felt, I don't think she was necessarily that harsh, but I just felt like that doesn't mean you can still look up to her.
Yeah,
I think,
or let you look up to what she used to be.
I think Vanessa was looking at her and thinking, "Oh, I miss how she used to be." Was more what
That's
it is.
fair. That's fair.
You know, which is fair when people hit that age, because Mima's probably in what, her 80s maybe. Looking at her,
sure,
she's blind. You know, she probably has some sort of dementia, maybe from forgetting everything. So, you know,
I get that.
It's very hard, I imagine, to see that happening and remember what that person used to be like. Where she had a motorcycle, she used to do karate, and undoubtedly she was more of a rebel because she would have grown. Mima if she's 80, she would have grown up in like the 30s and 40s. So, she would have seen that sort of life and lived that sort of life, and probably went through the suffrage and all that sort of stuff, and tried to. She would have had history. She would have had stories. That's what I'm trying to say, I suppose.
I was a bit concerned when Vanessa said something like, "Oh, sometimes I wish my dad would die." And then she kind of qualified that with, well, he's very controlling. Now, to be fair, we obviously don't know what her home life is like. But from what we've seen, he is very protective. I know we'll talk about Mr. Dorland in a second. He does seem very protective, but I just, something about those two statements seems a bit, that could just be her being a melodramatic teenager. But he didn't seem to me, from what we got of him, to warrant that kind of reaction. But again, we don't know what her home life's like, so there could be kind of sides to him we haven't seen. But that just kind of put me on alert a little bit.
For all we know, Mr. Dorland mutilates children.
For all
on a
we know.
day-to-day basis. For
Could
all we
be.
know.
He also works for a private security firm, so there is that too, which makes me very suspicious of him. Just that's a general rule of thumb. Like, oh, you work private security? I don't like you. But like I don't know. He also lost his son at some point. Like, he lost his son in his car accident, and Vanessa's probably the only kid he has left now. So he would be even more protective of her now that his son is dead. So
Especially
it probably
if
wasn't as bad, but now it's worse.
Because, especially since his son died because he didn't listen to his father because he wanted to go to a party. Yeah.
That happened to my family, actually. I don't know if I shared that with everybody, but quickly which again explains why my dad is so strict. His brother was very not as obedient compared to my dad, and his brother, my uncle, got in trouble. It doesn't matter like why, but he was basically forbidden to leave the house. And long story short, my uncle convinced my dad, because he really wanted to go swimming at the lake, and my dad was like, no, you're grounded, you're not allowed to leave the house. But just that once, my uncle convinced him to go to the lake. They went swimming. After a little while, my dad couldn't find my uncle anymore. He went back to the village. Everybody searched the lake, and they found him at the bottom of the lake. They found my uncle at the bottom of the lake, drowned. And my dad, I know to this day, still feels very guilty, because this was back when they were like teenagers. And he still to this day feels, I know, like the one time he did disobey his dad and let his brother go swimming, it cost him his brother's life. So that 100%, unfortunately, like, has happened in my family. So I did, by the way, really like Joey's theory that he originally thought Vanessa's dad was the mobster guy, or the guy. Yeah, I thought that would have been really cool twist.
Just with the suit.
After he mentioned it,
I was like, oh no, maybe him. It would have been so bad, but that would have given so much extra power to the decision of letting him stay alive or letting him be buried alive. So would have been really cool if that would have been him.
You see him come in with the big bandage strapped to his head.
Yeah.
Then the father's like, I remember you.
But if you had buried him alive, then they'd have had to like vastly change the scene because he is no longer there. So, but it would have been cool. So, what was the decision behind your naked choice, Kevin? Override.
Right, I'm
While
just gonna.
we're there.
He seems so adamant about it.
Yeah,
Like,
Kevin, please explain.
I mean, it's not as exciting as you guys want it to be or making it out to be. I literally just wanted to see how he would phrase it and like what hilarity would ensue.
You were curious.
I mean, it knowing this game would probably turn really bad, but just seeing that option presented, that's like the first time you kind of get like an option like that, and I was like, I really wanted to see what happened.
You know what I think would have happened?
What's that?
I think he would have went for the gun.
Maybe.
Because, telling him, oh, we were naked, and then he's like, what?
What?
Yeah, because looking at the story thing, it said we took the path that was like convinced Mr. Dorland, and that was at the door. So I'm guessing at that point there's a worse way that could have gone.
Yeah.
I was surprised because that decision didn't even involve a truck.
Yeah.
But Kevin was like, no, I really
That's why I
want
didn't
to use
spin the third one. I was like,
You were holding out for that truck.
Makes sense.
If there's an option in the next chapter, just nakedness and a truck, oh my god.
if that is, I called it like no one override me. I need.
How are we gonna pay for this?
At that point, I would just
some naked car washing.
At that point, I would just let Kevin have it. Yeah. Let's just let Kevin have his naked truck.
You know what? I'm like, all right, Kevin, you can have that one.
You're gonna let him spend all 3 overrides too.
Yeah. We
I'll
each of us
spend
sacrifice one override, so that way Kevin doesn't have any anymore.
I'll spend it. That's the most worth it thing I've ever seen.
Get it out.
I will admit that, like, we were naked. I was like, that is very funny, but the reason why I kept being like, no, Kevin, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Bad Kevin.
It was kind of injunction to what Hannah was saying before, like oh, I wish my dad was dead. You don't know. Like, I was like, that's a really weird line, and I was genuinely quite afraid that we were naked, that he'd then be like, "You whore," and just start going for her. And I was like, "No, let's blame us. Like, don't blame the girl."
That's a good point. That's an interesting point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is one of the ones where I wasn't like upset that I lost, but it was just kind of I was just like
So worth it.
I was really interested just to hear that one line. I could just look it up, but I would just want to hear that one dialogue where he's like, "Oh,
yeah." Kevin's gonna replay the chapter once we're done here and try it.
Kevin did it for the views. He just wanted to stir up drama.
Did
just
it for the
views.
vine.
Exactly."
What would Cedric say? I wonder.
Naked in a box.
Naked in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Naked in a box. Anything else about this chapter?
Just one small thing. The name of the chapter is really interesting to me because they dedicated an entire chapter name just to the word Shima, which makes me think that this chapter must be very defining for Jay's mom. I think. I think we made something of a decision that will have an influence on Jay's mom. Because otherwise, why would you name the chapter Shima?
You discovered that Jay's mom, the Sharon, isn't Jay's mom. It's a thing, and you also had the fact that you had Ash, who's calls his mom Shima, I believe, because that's the term for it. So you had two kids learn something about their mom. You had Jay learn that his mom isn't his real mom, and you had Ash learn that his mom had spent probably a decent amount of money putting together like an adventure day for him when he went out and ran into the woods and got himself probably in an immense amount of trouble.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be something really important about it, I think.
Maybe.
Otherwise, feels like such a throwaway chapter name. Because it's important that he knows that his mom isn't his mom and was it's his aunts that he didn't know about. But other than that, that's about it. I feel like there's more behind it.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit about that just because so there were two options when you found out, and there was kind of like I can't remember exactly what it had said, but it was basically it does matter, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I picked it does matter, and the reason for that isn't because it is always important who physically gave birth to you as to who that doesn't necessarily matter. Some people, are raised by people that are not biologically, but the reason that I didn't pick it doesn't matter is because it clearly in that moment mattered to Jay. Jay wanted to know, and I do feel like if that's information he wants to know, I don't think Sharon has any right to keep it from him. So that was kind of why I picked that. It wasn't necessarily like if Jay considers Sharon his mother because she raised him, I think, that's absolutely valid. But I think in that moment, Jay wanted to know, which is why I picked that.
I found that in general, more on this chapter than any other chapter, I found myself just not picking anything. I kind of just let the majority vote because I literally was on the fence. And even at the very end, I was like, Sam, tell me what to pick because I don't know what to pick. So yeah, I found that's the one thing that I found unique from my experience from this chapter. Versus the other chapters, I was less indecisive for some reason.
Why do you think that is hard? Do you think it's because you cared less or you cared more about the choices?
Actually, my gut reaction is telling me I cared less. Again, this is a lighter chapter, and I felt that the stakes. There were some moments where I felt the stakes were higher, like the naked, like the naked one. But in general, I could have gone either way, and been okay with the outcome. So I just kind of let the majority pick for me, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It did feel like a filler episode, just a transitional thing.
Yeah.
More like a resetting the scene, I think, because it's always it's in blocks of 3 chapters, and the first chapter was also kind of setting the scene, and I think this is
because
just doing the same thing.
Obviously, feeding off this chapter, we just had the fact that they just had that big shootout. They just escaped from the cops. There was a massive peak of drama and action, and now it's like, okay, how are we going to move on from this point? Which is, I think it's correct in this that this is what this chapter is building up to. It's building up to, this is how they got away. Now we're going to see what's going on with Zoe, what's going on with maybe Michelle and Vince in the future, because obviously they're maybe still together, that sort of thing. We might see it jump into the future now, where we see, maybe Zoe's trying to find out where the Holtz ended up because she wants to, it's been nagging her for her entire life that she saw her dad get shot. She saw Dale get shot, I think, as well. She lived a pretty traumatic event when she was, 7, 8, maybe? And she's probably been living with it all of her life, and looks like she maybe got into police work or something, I'd assume.
Could be.
We brought this up early. Go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly that also in terms of the way that the game's structured, the game's kind of presenting it as we finished book 1 and this is book 2. So I guess they're considering it as like the beginning of book 2. So they're doing what they did at the beginning of chapter 1, which was setting everything up.
Plus we have a transition from Vince as a main character to probably Zoe as a main character. Because Vince could have been dead. I think this was an important moment to set the relationship between Jay and Zoe as well.
That's true.
Because it's a big block of different paths at the beginning of the chapter with Jay.
Right. We mentioned this early on, but I did feel that Tyler just completely wanting to throw Jay under the bus. Even to the point that he was willing to shoot Jay, like come after him with a gun. I felt like that kind of came out of left field, just because of the prior chapters, and because I think in a previous chapter somebody mentioned that it wasn't the dad that pulled Jay out of the way when he was going to hit like Dale. It was Tyler who pulled Jay out of the way, and that was instinctive. Like he just his gut reaction was to move Jay, his youngest brother, out of the way. So I don't know, I didn't 100% buy it that Tyler was felt that strongly about Jay, but I don't know. How do you all feel about that?
I think Tyler was angry. I think he was feeling desperate. I think he's scared, even though he wouldn't admit it. And I think it was a heat of the moment thing that was said, because the second that he came out after Jay and he had like the breathing space, he was like, I didn't mean it, and he could have just been saying that, but we continued to kind of be nice to Tyler. We helped him up the tree and all that, and Tyler didn't take advantage of that moment. He just said, look out for you, and we ended on kind of a good note with him. So I think it was something said when emotions were running very, very high. And I think when he came down from that, we got more of kind of the brotherly aspect of Tyler. That's my view on it anyway.
Tyler watched his brother get shot. I think in this moment you can forgive him for a lapse of judgment.
Yeah, it's the pressure that's breaking him. I do find it poetic that we, at some point in one of the previous chapters, said that if Jay breaks, then everyone's like, oh, we're doing something wrong. And this, again, was such a moment where Jay broke and Tyler was like, oh, whoops, did something wrong.
Yeah. I'm fine with, it's the heat of the moment, and, under these circumstances, people have lapses of judgment, but to me, there's a fine line when you are running after your brother with a gun, like with supposedly the intention of shooting him down, supposedly. So that's where I'm like, okay, that might be a little extra there, Tyler. So, yeah.
See, I wonder if Tyler grabbed the gun because he was worried about there being cops. I wondered if he grabbed the gun not because he was going to shoot Jay, because I don't think he could shoot Jay. I think he was worried about there being cops in the woods.
Was confused about that, because were there two guns then? Because Jay had a gun as well.
Yeah, Jay took a gun as well.
So I can't remember there being two guns. I thought only Jay had one. There was they had a handgun, and then Dale had a gun as well.
I think potentially Bear was keeping guns in the cabin. So potentially they just
No, Jay took
picked
it.
stuff up from the armory there. Maybe.
So there are two guns then.
I assume Tyler just always had a gun on him. That's
fair.
But,
It might have been Sharon's gun that was on the counter.
Oh yeah.
right. Because I don't think that necessarily Sharon or Jay would be carrying a gun just by default. So, but I can see that with Tyler. All right. Sam, do you have anything at all?
I think we talked about it. Everything I wanted to bring up. I think we touched on just about everything.
Can you think of, since you weren't able to control anything, was there a decision that you could think of that you felt strongly about that we didn't choose, a path that we didn't take?
I don't think so. I wasn't super like, there weren't a lot of choices there that I don't know, felt like I think the only one that I was like, we have to make the right choice here was the cabin. And I felt like that was the only one that we had like a lot of pressure on, that we had to like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Then I think that kind of shows in like his story how that was like the only one that impacted really. But yeah, I think that's the only one that I was worried about.
Were you on the naked train?
I'm always for the chaos.
Okay, so you would have also picked the
Knowing
naked
that
one.
like everyone else was choosing something else, yeah, just to have fun. I don't think I would have used my override, but
Oh, you don't think you would have? Okay, so you didn't feel that strongly about it. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I do wonder if we're gonna see that girl and her father again. It felt like such a weird. I know we were like pausing and like they're trying to like do like a palate cleanser and start the story. So I don't know where like their story would be involved. It just. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if
I
they
was
try
thinking-
to rob a bank, because he guards a bank or whatever, and they might need money to escape, so they just like double down and try.
Yeah,
I did
because,
wonder what the relevance of that was. It seemed important.
Yeah, because I believe, I think it was Jay who mentions in either the last chapter or the chapter before, where they needed to get the money to pay off Bear's debts. They said, oh, we could rob a bank, because no one's robbed a bank in Duroc for decades. And then Vanessa says to her dad, oh, he runs a private security firm, and they protect banks, even though there's not been a bank robbery in this state for decades.
Okay.
So,
that makes sense.
There was both a crossroads and a story changer in that scene, so I think it's gonna be important at some point.
interesting.
Can I just to add on to the Shima thing? Vanessa's mom. Did any of you catch that she was dead?
Oh,
Don't think
No.
so.
I don't think so.
It-
When did she say that?
It was she didn't expressly say it, but when he picked up the cottage, she said that was my mum's, and she cradled it. And if it was just a case of like, oh, my parents got a divorce, then I highly doubt they would have had the big framed photo of her mum on the mantle.
Yeah.
So I think it's both a case of they've lost the mum
and
and
the son.
one of the kids.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
true.
with Dorland, it's literally him, his daughter, and his mom. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
How many people?
That's stressful.
That is stressful. Back to Vanessa. How many people ship Jay and Vanessa, or how many people think that maybe Jay might be better off with somebody else?
That's so cute.
You ship them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
He
I thought
needs
it was
some
cute,
rebel.
but-
He needs rebel in his life, Jay. He always
See,
listens to everybody.
I think Vanessa would be too much like his mom, or like Sharon, I suppose.
I agree. I don't agree that Jay needs more rebel in his life, because that's the problem.
I think
he has too much
I
rebel
think
in his
Jay
life.
needs someone who is stable, who is like a rock.
I
to him.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Because he's had that all his life. He's had rebel all his life. He's had all of this ups and downs and tidal waves and all this. I think Vanessa would be too much like Sharon to him, which in a way might mean he ends up with Vanessa, ironically enough. But I think somebody like Like if there was like a Joyce alternative, like if there was someone like her, because Joyce is obviously very stable.
I like Joyce.
She's very solid. She looks after her kid.
Yeah.
You know, she does the best she can. I think someone, if there was someone around Jay's age who was like Joyce, I think that would be the best for him on a personality scale. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really agree with that, because right now he has a lot of rebel in his family that doesn't really care for him. I feel it's always the family, but mostly they just care for themselves. Well, if Vanessa really likes him and she's rebel, then she will be rebel for him, not against him. So that's a big difference. It's someone that will say that will say to other people, don't step on my boyfriend.
I suppose
just someone, it's someone who
Unless
really
he
cares
likes
for
it, you know.
Yeah.
I think someone like Joyce would do the exact same thing. I think Joyce would, because Joyce quite literally pointed a gun at Tyler. So I think Joyce would do the same thing. It's just she'd do it in a way I think would be positive for Jay. Because I think Jay is just, I think I look at it this way. I think Vanessa, when she's older, would drag Jay into fights.
Or
but I think someone like
Joyce.
I mean, she could do. There are many choices on the path of life. So I suppose.
True.
Yeah.
My thought was Jay throughout his life, I feel like he's been trying to do as much of the right thing as possible. Not that Vanessa doesn't do the right thing, and to be fair, she's still a teenager, so she has a lot of maturing and growing up to do anyway. But for Jay, like, I just kind of want him to find somebody that can finally validate that, yeah, like, the things that you are choosing to do that you believe is right is actually right, and you should continue down that path. And with Vanessa, I don't know if she necessarily will validate that for him as often. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I do like the fact that Vanessa found the fact that he knew what Teddy Roosevelt did, even though we obviously knew that. I think the fact that she was like, "Oh, you're so smart." I think that was really good for him, like as a person.
That's true. That's true. Cool. Anything else? All right.